When Doctor Who exploded back in the 60s thanks to Dalek Mania, forget the sky, the far edge of the universe was the limit for the show. Merchandising was off the charts, the next few Dalek stories were definitely in the works, and there was an idea to take Doctor Who to a place it has not been to since, at least not in this way. Back in 1965, Amicus Productions bought the rights to 3 Dalek stories from the BBC and Terry Nation for a whopping £500. These were the original Dalek serial The Daleks, the bleak yet brilliant The Dalek Invasion of Earth, and the electrifying The Chase. However, these films did not star William Hartnell as the Doctor. Instead, they starred the late great Peter Cushing as Doctor Who, along with a completely new supporting cast. These films haven't been looked upon with universal love since they're probably not canon, but I look back at them rather fondly, and I'm going to tell you why you should watch them. First things first, the Doctor. Well, Doctor Who. Played by Peter Cushing, this character isn't the same old Time Lord we know and love. This is just an eccentric human scientist who built TARDIS, not the TARDIS, and goes by Doctor Who.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am Doctor Who.
Yeah, it is as weird and as cringeworthy as you might think, but you can actually look past it very easily. In the original film, Doctor Who and the Daleks, Cushing's Doctor is a much warmer, much more vibrant, dare I say it, more likeable character than his desaturated counterpart. Whilst he still has the same motivation as Doctor Number 1 to lie about the fluid link to get an excuse to explore the city in the first film, it's far less selfish, especially since his granddaughter Susan, who we'll get to, is just as intrigued as he is. Furthermore, he is far more apologetic when he realises that he and his companions are in mortal peril. He is far more caring, he's far more responsible, and he's much more of a gentleman. He works better with the Thals, and he just wants everyone to be safe. Except the Daleks, of course.
One of you four must go outside the city. Which will it be?
Speaking of which, without these profit magnates, none of this would have happened. I love the movie Daleks. Whilst the Paradigm Daleks back in 2010 were rightfully criticised for their sort of over-flamboyant, kind of stupid look, these more brightly coloured Daleks were a lot more justified in their use because this was 1965 and the first time Doctor Who was seen in colour prior to it, actually being in colour in 1970. Their larger dome lights might have looked off initially, but they paved the way for the Time War redesigned lights we saw in 2005. Though I will stand by, I don't like them blinking when they're moving around and not talking. That was just kinda strange, and it still irks me to this day. While the budget didn't allow for numerous ray gun special effects, the use of fire extinguishers was a cheap and effective way to make the weaponry work. But that budget did allow for less cardboard cutouts and more real Dalek props. In fact, the BBC had to resort to some of these props for the actual show because they were short. Whoops. Carol Ann Ford's Susan is an iconic character within the Whoniverse, but the writing back then didn't always do her justice. Her younger counterpart in these films, Roberta Tovey's Susan, is a far more fleshed out, wiser, and once again, dare I say it, a more enjoyable character to spend time with in these Doctor Who movies. As said, Susan here is just as interested in the Dalek City as her grandfather, and the writers of this adaptation really give the character the respect she deserves. She rises to the occasion with zero hesitation, she is not frightened at all of these big Daleks in front of her, and honestly she is just a joy to watch. It's great that her character, along with Cushing's Doctor, carried over to the sequel.
It worked. Well done, everybody.
Whilst the Daleks and the Dalek Invasion of Earth were adapted into Doctor Who and the Daleks and Daleks Invasion of Earth 2150 AD respectively, The Chase unfortunately never made it to the big screen thanks to the second film being a bit more of a flop, which is weird, which I'll get to. And whilst these iconic stories in their original form are brilliant in their own right, and these films are not at all there to replace them in a watch through, the shorter overall runtime of the films definitely trims the fat from these serials. If you know the originals well, it might seem like these movies are rushing through everything at a tiring pace, but they're still covering all the beats for a newcomer to understand what's going on. Even when having to introduce a bunch of new characters along with everything else, the pacing in these films is genuinely brilliant and everything makes sense, even if you're not a Doctor Who fan, and that is a big win for these films. Though they're not one-to-one movie adaptations, Ian and Barbara are present in the first film, not as school teachers, but as a couple. Roy Castle's Ian is far more comedic than William Russell's original, and Jenny Linden's Barbara is caring and brave, much like Susan, but not given anywhere near as much attention. Neither of these two characters appeared in the sequel, Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD, but this for me is where things get really, really good for these spin-offs. The original The Dalek Invasion of Earth is really something. The scene in which the Daleks trundle over Westminster Bridge is arguably one of the most iconic shots in sci-fi history. It's a bleak look at what is at first a Dalek victory, but everything about it is still eerily beautiful. With its bigger budget and higher production value, Invasion Earth 2150 AD takes it to whole new levels, giving us a more elaborate look at a dead London and explores more characters, more locations, and most importantly, more Daleks. The legendary Bernard Cribbins joins Team TARDIS as Tom, a brave and brilliant police officer who is magnificent opposite Peter Cushing. Jill Curzon joins the cast as Doctor Who's niece Louise, and Roberta Tovey reprises her role as Susan. Similar to the first film, the fat has been trimmed from the original serial, and since we have more locales and action sequences to play with, the pacing throughout is excellent and the whole experience is thrilling from start to finish. Standout sequences involve the Resistance breaking both Doctor Who and Tom out from the Dalek ship, ensuing in an explosive battle between man and metal, Wyler mowing down Daleks in his little red van, and basically the entire act set within the mine in Bedfordshire. One other huge standout feature of this sequel is the music. It's here, look, I have got it. This is mainly showing the first film, but it's got the second film soundtrack too. I realise I'm just sort of showing off the movie memorabilia that I own, but you guys have asked me about what Doctor Who crap I own on Instagram, so I'm just going to bring it to the YouTube channel, why not? Now, while the first film's music isn't at all bad, it is in 2150 AD where they really step things up a bit. The whole score is a bit more grand, it's a little less repetitive, and also one of my favourite things about it is it actually seems to pay homage back to the original 1964 serial. Need to get my dates right, this was 66, the original was 64, by having almost lone percussion. If you know the Dalek Invasion of Earth, there is just this recurring thing of just drums playing as Barbara runs across London being chased by Daleks. They really do pay homage to that in Invasion Earth 2150 AD, and I love it. This sequel is a love letter to one of, if not the most iconic Dalek stories of all time, and if you could only watch one of these two films, I would absolutely recommend this one. While, as said, the First Doctor purists might scowl at the fact that this isn't William Hartnell and not every single tiny detail has been carried over from the original serials to these films, these non-canon adaptations really aren't as much of a departure as you might expect. It's incredibly obvious that these screenplays have a lot of respect for the original source material, but still take things in their own successful direction. Cushing's Doctor is nothing but lovable, the supporting characters are well written and portrayed, props again for making Susan an incredibly strong young character, and not making Barbara and Louise simple attractive damsels in distress. The production value is incredible, and the films really do hold up well to this day. Also, it's great to see these stories just double down on the Daleks. I mean, they are literally the selling point of these films, not because they're adaptations of a popular TV show, not because it's got the Doctor in some form or the TARDIS or just TARDIS. It is the Daleks that are the big selling points, and they portray them incredibly well. Whilst they are intrinsically linked to the BBC series, these films stand up so well on their own. You don't need to be a Doctor Who fan to enjoy these films, and that's probably the best thing about them. But if you are a Doctor Who fan and still haven't been able to stomach watching these yet, leave that Fez and Sonic Screwdriver behind. Just sit back and watch these wonderful British flicks from the 60s. You've got the storylines that are familiar, you've got that lovely sort of campy vibe from sci-fi films of that era, which I personally absolutely love, and you've got Daleks. What's not to love? Don't overanalyze them in comparison to their original works, don't try and shoehorn them into actual Who canon like some are doing. Consume them as they were supposed to be consumed. As these big budget, big bombastic, big stupid, big camp adaptations of classic Doctor Who TV featuring our favourite deadly dustbins. Just sit back and enjoy them. And that is why you should watch Peter Cushing's Doctor Who movies. If you can't stomach both of them, at least watch Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. I think it's better than the first one. It underperformed at the box office, hence why The Chase was never made, which is a shame, but you really do owe it to yourself, even as a Doctor Who fan, as a sci-fi fan, as someone who just likes classic British movies or just classic movies. Go and watch one of these two, or both films. So if you've already watched these films, or if you've actually come back to this video because you've decided to actually watch them after watching this for the first time, let me know in the comment section below what you think of these films and which of the two is your favourite. Don't forget to subscribe to WhoCulture if you haven't already, and I have been Rich. You can follow me on Twitter at PickupChangeToe and on Twitch at RichIsLive. Thank you all very much for watching, take care of yourselves, I'll see you soon.